I started cold calling. I got my first 4 clients and made my first $6,000 per month just from cold calling. Cold calling is also perfect because it drastically increases your sales skills, it forces you to think on your feet, and it makes you a better speaker, which will increase your skills on sales calls and in life in general. So I highly recommend to start cold calling, and in this video, I'm going to show you the exact cold calling script that I use to scale my agency from 0 to 6K per month. So let's hop into my computer and I'll walk you through the script line by line. Awesome. So this is the IBD or Erroneous by Design cold calling script that I always use to actually grow and fill my calendar. Now, before we actually get into the script, there's some core mindset ideas that you must have before you actually start calling, because with anything in business, it's all about the mindset. If your mindset is wrong, it doesn't matter how much you do, you're going to fail because you're not going to be able to keep up with it. And you're not going to be able to stay positive when things get hard. Because in business, like Alex Hormozy always says, you're going to get kicked in the face every single day. And one of the best skills you can have is getting kicked in the face and learning to still have a smile. All right, so let's talk about the core mindset idea. So the first thing is to make sure you're happy and friendly on the call, right? Nobody wants to call somebody who's sad, right? Nobody wants to hear anybody who's sad, depressed, angry. So get all that out of your mind before you even think about calling, right? Go do something you enjoy before the call. Take a nice shower. Do something to make you feel good before you call, because that's going to condition your brain to want to call over and over again as a reward. Right? So next is do not perceive the decision maker to be above you in any way, right? So a lot of people feel like on the sales calls or on the cold calls that you're begging someone else for business and you're kind of not on their level as well. I want you to understand that you're an entrepreneur calling another entrepreneur. That's all you are. You're an entrepreneur trying to help other people grow their businesses so they can feed their families and pay their staff. So your skills are super important and very valuable for them. Just make sure your product is good first. Now, the next thing is how you say what you say is far more important than what you say. Exude confidence, charm, and wit, right? So it's important to understand that how you say something is almost more important than what you say, right? I'm sure you see comedians all the time. Comedians are great, but if they have a great joke and they don't deliver it well, it doesn't matter how good the joke is. A really bad joke can be delivered in a great way and still be funny, but a good joke delivered in a bad way will never be funny. Right? So it's all about how you deliver yourself. And if people see that you're confident, they'll just start believing it themselves. It's really a self-fulfilling prophecy. So next is control is key. You must be in control. Maintain control by being the one asking the questions. As soon as you start answering questions, you lost control, right? So really, the one who controls a conversation is the one who asks questions, because it forces the other person to respond, right? Now, you don't want to be too secretive and not answer any questions, but you always want to lead them towards getting on a call with you, right? You're not trying to sell people over the phone and give them your credit card. You're trying to sell people on the meeting in the first place. And that goes to the next one, which is always redirect the conversation to asking them to book a time for a call. Always end a rebuttal or explanation with one goal in mind, getting them on the calendar, right? That is your number one goal. As long as you keep telling them, let's get on the calendar, let's get on the calendar, let's get on the calendar, they're most likely going to book, right? That's just the number one thing you want to do. Never ever end a sentence with empty space. Always end it with a question asking them what's a good time. All right, so the next one is you want to show extreme consideration for the person you call. Make sure they feel like they're being listened to and cared for, right? You want to make sure you understand their point of view, because at the end of the day, you want them to see that you're a caring person, because business at the end of the day is helping people and caring for other people. That's really what it is. And if your first impression is showing that you're caring about the other person, they're much more inclined to listen to you and give you a shot. So making sure that you take their time in consideration, making sure you understand that you're taking time out of their day, but you still want to ask for their permission for things like that make it show that you care about them and they'll respond to you a lot better. And the next one is if it's a gatekeeper, never pitch them. Never, ever, ever pitch a gatekeeper. Just ask if the owner will be back, right? So a gatekeeper is, let's say you call a doctor's office and you call the receptionist, that's the gatekeeper, right? If there's a gatekeeper, it'll never work, right? I've called so many people. You will never ever be able to pitch the gatekeeper to get them on to the call with the owner. It just never works, because at the end of the day, what the gatekeeper is going to do is you're going to tell them, hey, I have this thing they offer. They're going to tell the owner, hey, someone's trying to sell you something, and the owner's going to tell you to just block them, right? That's what they do, because they never ever pitch your business the right way like it should. So if it's a gatekeeper, just say, hey, look, let me know when the owner will be back, right? That's pretty much it. All right, so those are the core mindset ideas. Now let's talk about the actual script. Now, there are different versions of the script for different situations, because no one cold call is going to be the same, right? So first we want to have an introduction, and we want to focus the introduction on if you don't have the owner's first name. Sometimes you will have the owner's first name, sometimes you won't. But if you don't have it, this is how you start it off. So first you say, hi, is this name of the business? They say yes, and the responses are always going to be in pink. You say, okay, great, I'm looking for the owner, right? And at this point, they'll say one of these things, right? They'll either say the owner's not here, what is this in regards to, or this is the owner. That's the only three things they're ever going to say. So we'll go over each possible answer below. So scenario one is that the owner's not here. So you say, okay, no problem. Do you know when the owner might be available? Very simple, right? Very simple. They'll usually give you a date and time when the owner will be back. Mark this down on the Google Sheet and follow up, right? So we track all of our cold calls on a Google Sheet. This Google Sheet right here is an example of all the list of cold calls prospects we have. So there's a section here. I like to add a section on the all the way on the far right that says notes that just, shows the examples and the issues that you may have when calling a certain prospect, right? So I highly recommend to use Google Sheets because it's a lot easier to track. Now, scenario two is if they say, what is this in regards to? So I always say that you want to tell them a little bit about the situation, but not too much, right? So I say it's in regards to getting you guys more customers. Do you know who I could talk to about that, right? So basically, they don't really know what the situation is. So they're most likely just going to either give the phone to the owner or they're going to tell you when the owner will be back. So after this, they'll probably tell you exactly who you can speak to about it. They may even give you their number, which is totally fine. So if they give you the number on who to speak about it, just give them a call and then move forward on to the next part of the call. Now, the third scenario is if they actually call and say, hey, this is the owner, right? So awesome, you got to the owner. So that's step one. Now, step two is to actually send out the pitch. Now, first, let's talk about the introduction if you do know the owner's first name, right? So let's say the owner's first name is John. You're going to say, hi, is this John? They say yes. You're going to be like, awesome, great. Hi, John. I'll be totally honest with you. This is a sales call or a cold call, so please don't hate me. Would you happen to have a quick 30 seconds? If not, it's all good. Right? So that is the best way I've seen to really get someone to put their guard down. Because at the end of the day, right, honesty is the best policy. And I know it sounds cheesy, but it is what it is. If there's no reason to hide the fact that you're selling something. If you're trying to go and sell something, tell them, hey, I'm being honest. I'm trying to sell you something. That pure honesty will get people to be like, you know what? I'll give them 30 seconds. Because at the end of the day, right, I want you guys to understand, you're calling another business owner. So they understand the pain that you're in, right? They understand how hard it is. They probably started their own company. The company that they started now, they probably started from scratch as well. So they understand how difficult it is to grow something like this, and they understand what it takes. So they'll most likely give you a quick 30 seconds if you just say this, right? So at this point, most of the time, they're probably going to laugh. They'll be like, haha, that's so funny. I really appreciate, your honesty. And they're going to respect you and give you some time. So they usually say something like this after they say, depends on what you're selling, right? Usually what they're going to say. I've heard that a lot. Now, the next part is where we get into the pitch and explaining your offer. Now, everyone's offer is going to be different, of course, because everyone has a different business. So if you want like a one-on-one help on how to actually build a successful offer, and you want one-on-one help in showing exactly how me and my team build a 6-figure AI agency in just 3 months, then you can click a link below, book in a time with me and my team, and we'll see if we'll be a good fit to work one-on-one to help you grow your own agency. So this right here is a basic template that you guys can use in your specific offer and niche, right? So what you should say is, okay, great, thank you. Thank you for the time, right? So my name is your name, of course, and our company has been working with name of your niche all across your general area, right? So just to give you an example, let's just say, for example, it's me. I say, okay, great, thank you. So my name is Zach, and our company has been working with realtors all across Florida, something like that, right? And you say, basically, what we're offering is insert your offer and guarantee. If we don't get you that result, you don't pay us anything. Does that kind of sound like a fair deal? That's it, right? Very, very simple. So if I were to put this into my own system, I'd be like, and basically what we're offering is 10 qualified listing appointments in 90 days. If we don't get you that result, you don't pay us anything. Does that kind of sound like a fair deal? Very simple, right? It's very simple. Awesome, right? So, of course, this is where people usually drop off or they are more interested, right? So it just depends. So at this point, they might say something like, how does that work? Here is where you actually explain a little bit how it works, but you don't want to explain too much, right? You just kind of want to focus on the benefits of what they have. So, for example, I just made a real example here. So we have an AI system that automatically engages, replies, and books potential clients onto your calendar without you ever having to lift a finger. Our software also integrates through all of your marketing channels like your website, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok to book as many appointments as possible. So we can show you exactly how it works on a Zoom call because it's much more of a technical type of system. Do you happen to have 20 minutes later today or tomorrow? you always want to end with asking them for a time. Now, normally, if you've been on the phone with them for this long, they're probably going to turn into a booked appointment. So they probably might say something like, okay, that sounds good. They're going to be like, all right, so what we can do is schedule a quick Zoom call. We can show you exactly how this process works and what it looks like for some of our current clients. Would you have 20 minutes this week or next? Awesome. So you want to get a specific time down for them. Make sure that they look at their own calendar and they choose a time that works for them. Because if you just put out a time, they might just say yes and be like, oh, okay, whatever, doesn't matter, just to get off the phone. So booking the actual call on the calendar, this is where you actually open up your calendar yourself and book them in, right? You never want to have them or send them a link. You just want to book it in currently, consistently on the call right there. So for example, if you want to look at a calendar that we use for our own agency, this is what a calendar looks like. So you can actually type in a time here, make sure they choose a time, click select, and then here you can pretty much just put in all the information that you have here and ask them the information as you go down the actual form, right? To make sure that it's filled out correctly. So this is exactly what it looks like, and make sure you have the right time zone. Make sure you ask that if you're calling across America or across the world for that matter. So at the end, before you hang up the call, you always want to make sure that they got the text, right? So you want to say, hey, did you get that confirmation text or that confirmation email that I sent over for that actual booked appointment? Now, we use Go High Level to send out all of our texts, emails, conversations, whatever the case may be. So whatever system you use, I highly recommend Go High Level. Whatever system you use, make sure it sends out the information right there so that they confirm that they got it. Now, here's the best part, which is objections and rebuttals, everyone's favorite part. So the thing is, most people are probably just going to say, I'm not interested. And you can look at this in two different ways, right? So for me, I'm more of a volume type of salesman. So for me, I like to just do tons of calls. And if they're not interested, I don't want to push too hard because I don't want to get someone on the call who's kind of interested, right? I want to get someone on the call who's like really fired up about this, who's pretty much ready to go, because those are the type of people who close a lot easier. If you're basically fighting for your life just to get them on the call, I don't know if that would be a good sale. I've noticed that people who I really fight to get on the call with, they don't close. But the people who are just interested and just like that, boom, they're my clients to this day. So personally, I say if they're not interested, just move on to the next one. However, you can do one little rebuttal and push. So you can be like, yeah, I understand, but if I could bring you 10 new clients in your business per month completely on autopilot, wouldn't that be something you'd want to hear for just 20 minutes? I have gotten some people to book with this method here, so it does work as well. Now, if someone says, send me an email, send me some more information, that means that they're somewhat interested, but they don't really feel like it's worth their time for now. So what you want to do is say something like this. So you say, yes, of course, and I can do you one better. No problem. I'll send over an email with all the information, and in that email, there'll be an option to schedule in a time with us if you're interested. To save your spot, just because our spots fill up very quickly, I would need to get something on the books now. Do you happen to have a quick 20 minutes later this week, right? So basically you're saying, hey, I understand you may not have the time now. You may not want to see more information, but remember, your goal is to get a time down, right? So as long as they have the time down and it's in their calendar, they're most likely going to show up. What you could also say instead is, hey, we don't really send emails because this is a very visual presentation. It would really just take 10, 15 minutes. Would you happen to have another time basically later today? Now, if they say call me back later, this does depend. If they tell you to call back at a certain time because they're generally busy, then ask them for a time to call back. You don't want to push too hard here either. Just call them back at that time. If they don't pick up, then they weren't that interested to begin with. So a lot of people do these things called smoke screens where they just say whatever to get off the call. So a lot of times, if you just push a little bit more, you can get them on the call and turn them into a closed deal. So I would just say, hey, sure, no problem. What time works better for you? They usually give you a quick time. You call back then, and if they pick up or not just determines if they're serious about actually moving forward. So they also might ask, how much is it, right? That's a question a lot of people have. So you can say, yeah, so we have different packages ranging from a couple hundred to a couple thousand. It really just depends on the exact features you would want on it, right? Because we don't want to add something that you don't need, right? You want to make it seem like you're doing them a favor because you want to make sure that I can't give you exact price if I don't understand your exact business and what you want, right? It wouldn't be fair. So then you say, I could show you a little more about the specific pricing on a quick Zoom call. Would you have 15 minutes tomorrow or later this week? Now, if they say, I already have a marketing team, this is a very, very tough objection to go over. Because getting someone to switch from one marketing team to another is 10 times more difficult than any other objection you can ever have. So in that scenario, I would say, okay, I understand. I mean, we could still hop on the call and just share some info to see if it's something you might be considering in the future. You want to make sure the calls team is not salesy at all and just very, very casual and simple. That's your main goal. Now, that's pretty much the whole script on handling objections, doing the pitch, and having the correct mindset. Now before you cold call, you're definitely going to want to get the leads in the first place, right? So what I do to get my leads and how I got 32,000 leads here is I go to places like Fiverr.com and I literally just type in your niche leads. So you can just say like roofing leads as an example. And then once you see here, you can get tons of leads for a very, very cheap price. Now, I will say with these leads, it does depend, right? Now, if you want to have the actual information of the owner and their name, their personal cell phone number, and all the information there, it's going to be a lot more expensive than if you just do a broad search of businesses. This guy provides solar leads for $20, $10, $45, $5. If you have the money, I always say to make sure your lead has the name of the owner in the actual lead.